opinion researches, and at the end we will have a special presentation, a special report on Slovakia. So Isabell, thanks for coming, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to this beautiful city and being able to spend time with you and talking about these tremendous important issues. And I always find it very rewarding to come to Budapest and to this part of Europe in order to exchange views. I'm here to talk about the European election, in the context of the European election, about the work we're doing with Opinions. And I will start explaining to you very quick what Opinions is and what we're aiming to do. And then kind of going into the most recent study we have published in view of the elections. And thus helping to provide a context for a large debate that we are hopefully going to have right after our presentations. So what is Opinions? Opinions is actually a regular European-wide survey. We do collect our own data 4 times a year. We do interview citizens in every European member state, in every European language. Thus we have a representative sample for the EU as a whole in the end, for 6 member states as well, and we do have obviously regional representative data as in East, West, North, South, Eurozone, non-Eurozone, etc., etc. It depends on the analysis and how we calculate and do the math. What we're actually aiming to do was, as it has been pointed out, I have been working on issues of democracy and legitimacy for the longest time, and issues of politicization have been very dear to my heart, as I have been a journalist before. So public discourse is something I find utterly interesting. But it didn't really happen in the EU, right? So we had this thing, the permissive consensus, which basically meant that nobody really knew what was going on, but everybody thought it was all right. So, and then with the Euro crisis and the different crises, that obviously shifted and the debate became more politicized. And actually, one of the effects was that the citizen kind of became part of the political discourse. So we kept hearing more and more what actually the people wanted out of European politics, from the European Union, what they thought, etc. So the fact of the matter is we do not have a lot of data sets when it comes to public opinion in the European Union. There's obviously the almighty Eurobarometer. But when you compare it with the number and the quantity of empirical research within one nation state, it is next to nothing. So we had the possibility to set up our own research project, and the ambition was, on one hand, to collect regular data on actually how people view European Union or politics in general in Europe, which is a distinction that is very dear to my heart. What they think about political parties, what they think are most pressing issues, etc., etc., etc. So the aim was to build like an opinion and mood and attitude landscape throughout all of the European Union that is renewed and rebusted and kind of renewed and rechecked every several months, and that's in the hope kind of giving that data to the public discourse in order to make it a little bit more objectifiable and not only driven by particular political interests. So very quickly, actually, we started getting hung up on this one big issue that is also interesting us today in this conference, is like why the changes in the political landscape we're actually seeing. What is behind what are the drivers behind the phenomena of polarization and politicization and also populism? What drives the electorate towards the edges of the political system? And we have, and I will in a minute go deeper in our most recent study, but we have come up with numerous, ever since 2016, with numerous studies kind of hitting the subject from all sorts of different angles. And if you're interested in finding out more, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give you larger lines of what our findings are. I'm not going to hit you with a lot of data points. but if you're interested and you would like to check it out, this is our website. It's called opinions.eu. You can pick up a small flyer on your way out if you want to have a quick reminder, easy to carry. And I also brought a couple of studies for those who actually are paper lovers. We do still cater to them. One thing we come back to when looking in our data, and like that we have collected with questions in mind about polarization and politicization and where it comes from, the drivers of actually these phenomena we see in the political landscape, is the role of fear or anxiety. Like we have now tested it in so many ways, and whichever way we kind of approach it, we come to the conclusion that there is a really sharp divide between two groups in society, and that is those who have a positive view of the future, a positive outlook, who are optimistic about the future of the society on the one hand, but also on their personal situation within that future, and those who are pessimistic about it. And the political effects of these basically states of minds we have shown again and again in our studies. So our most recent study, and that is the one that we had just published in view of the election, is this one. You see the title up there. It's The Hopeful, the Fearful, the Furious, Polarization in the 2019 EP elections. And we have once more dived into that divide, and we could actually, what we did this time is we tried to measure anxiety or the lack of, thus in two different ways. We were looking at the way people actually look at their society and how they estimate the future of the society with two different questions. And then we were asking them about their personal economic situation and the outlook, how they project themselves. So the one is an abstract, general one, and the other one is a personal vision of themselves in the future. And we could see that there is a sharp divide, 50-50 approximately, of those people who have a negative or positive view about the future of their societies. So this we label societal worries, or the lack of optimism, societal optimism, or society anxiety. The divide is not as 50-50-ish in the middle when it comes to economic anxiety. And I think this is the first very interesting point we might want to keep in mind when thinking about the elections, is that whatever economic crisis we have moved out, we do see that economic issues kind of move a little bit, take a little bit of back seat towards other issues when people are asked, what is important to you in your personal life? What do you think is important policy points in the European Union? What is basically working you the most right now? So when it comes to the personal situation, we see like a split of 1/3, 2/3 of people who are actually worried about their economic situation. 2/3 are actually confident about their economic situation, which is not the first time we find this, but I think it's very important to point out in view of the elections. When looking at these two groups, we nevertheless see that those who are optimistic are very confident in the political system, are most likely to support like main points of the political discourse. Also when it comes to changes within society, so liberalization of rules of society versus societal conservatism. These people feel confident within their lives, they feel confident within society, they feel confident about the future, economic or otherwise. And they are most likely to vote within the mainstream, what you would call in the mainstream kind of political parties, so not on the extreme end. And they are utterly pro-European and support European integration, not only in the abstract and in the potential, not only in the principle and the potential, but also they're more likely to think that how European politics is conducted right now is doing okay. Maybe you allow me just to have a slide of stepping out of my train of thoughts right here, because it's a very important point that we also see again and again. I mentioned before the permissive consensus and how people for the longest time didn't really know what was going on, but kind of agreed that it is a good thing. Now we kind of have moved to the opposite assumption, right? So nobody really understands what is going on at the European level, but everybody is kind of against it. The first one was a little bit maybe too optimistic. The second one is definitely too pessimistic, because if you dive deeper into actually what people think about the European Union, European politics, in brackets, politics in general, because they don't tend to make such a big difference in evaluating politics. You see that when it comes to questions of potential and principle of European politics, they're very much and largely supportive of it. So membership, membership in general, kind of actor in the world is a big one. Like they all think that the EU should be a larger actor on world stage, etc., etc. But when you ask, so when you move away from principle and potential and ask, so how are things going right now? And how you think things will be going in, let's say, 2 years of time. So state of play and short-term projection, future projection, then the image flips, and then people become very negative. So they see the potential and principle of the European Union and European integration as something very valuable and stable. They're not very happy with how things do play out right now. And I think this is ambivalent, but this is how people are, and it's something very steady, and I think we should also move to a point where we accept that that is the case. Coming back to the optimists, who are very confident in their time and in their position, and also towards European politics, which they kind of assess in a more general positive term. And when we now look at the pessimists, we move to a very interesting place, because we do see a general difference. We see that these people are less confident in their own position, they are less confident towards the political system in themselves, they have less trust, they are more likely to move to the political, to the right fringes of the political system, or say, I do not have a party affiliation at all. And when you then even look a little bit deeper into that group and assess how they feel towards European integration, you can see that this negative group, this pessimist group, are actually split in themselves. And this is another very important point, and that is, these people are not as homogeneous as the optimists. These people are, let's say, 40% of them are generally anti-European, very European skeptic. These people will espouse a very hard level of distrust towards European politics and say that they're against of all sorts of further integrational steps. Thus we have another 40% out of these pessimists, so in a group in the same kind of number, that are actually expressing attitudes towards expectations towards European integration in European politics. They are worried about their situation in society and where they will stand in the future and what the future will bring, but they do have expectation towards European politics in order to make that better, right? So, so when we look at, what I was trying to say is we have this split about being optimist or being pessimist. These optimism or pessimism group have distinct differences when it comes to the political positioning, to the party affiliation, and to the way they kind of sense society, but also the way they kind of position themselves towards European integration. But they're also, right in front of this election, have a couple of points that are quite in common, and they're also interesting. They do have a common level of knowledge. You cannot say that the one group is the one that is, has less knowledge about European politics than the other one. I think this is a positive crisis effect, if you wish. We have now passed years of intense debate of European issues, and people are affected by that. Second, there is the same level of intention of vote. So what we've seen is, in several polling, not only in ours, that intention of voting has gone up. Participation in the last European election was by 42%. Now we have 65% of people who intend to vote in the European Union as a whole. Whether they're optimist or pessimist doesn't matter. This is the same type of level. I think it's an interesting point to also observe, to keep in mind and observe when election day comes, out of two reasons. First of all, obviously, intention is not action, so it will be interesting to see how many people actually will make it to the polls after declaring their intention to go. And second, it's an issue of mobilization. So we not have a majoritarian electoral system in the European Union, so it's not the UK, it's not the US, it is different. However, this is a 50-50 split, and the question is, what type of political party will cater in their campaign to what type of group, and which type of party and which type of claim will be able to mobilize more than the other. We have seen some depressing results on this issue, so I don't know, I'm not making a prediction, I'm just saying, watch out for it. I think it will be interesting to see. I think I'll make a full stop here, and we'll probably go into some parts and points in the debate. Thank you very much.